See if this works any better. Hello everyone, Russ of Aquarimax here. I'm really pleased to announce that we have reached 6,000 subscribers and now surpassed it. Really excited about that and wanted to celebrate by doing a live stream. I've been wanting to get back into the live stream groove once again. It's been a while, what with the holidays and everything, so hopefully this one will be as successful as the last one. It's been fun to do them, but I just haven't had a chance. So I just wanted to thank all of the subscribers for subscribing. It's really exciting that we're at 6,000 and counting. So hopefully we'll be on to even more pretty soon. Sean Meister, good evening. You are the first. Welcome. And thank you for joining. And Noob 3304, hey, Mr. Vivarium, congrats. Thank you, everyone. I am really, really happy about it. And I wanted to just kind of do an AMA or Ask Me Anything kind of live stream this time. Sean Meister says, who's your friend on your shoulder? Hello again, HC Aqua and Craig R306. 14 tanks running. Very nice. Excellent. Oh, the friend on my shoulder. This is Twilly. He's my daughter's budgie, and he is extremely friendly. He likes everybody, so I just thought I'd have him along, add some visual interest, as I don't have a human companion here on the live stream today, and it's not aimed at a fish tank. So if you get tired of looking at my face, you can look at little Twilly here and see how he does. Yeah, he's really fun. Hopefully he'll say something. He does talk. Sean Meister says super cute. Thank you. He will say his name. He says budgie, and he says a lot of other things. So it's kind of a fun little guy to have around. He is inseparable from my daughter most of the time, but she's at dance class, and so I get to hang out with him. And we'll see if he decides to perk up and say something, or if he decides to get really loud, and we'll have to give him to somebody else in another room. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I have recently made a few purchases that I'm going to be releasing videos about. I just thought I'd give you kind of a preview, some new plants for the Endler tank. My daughter got a dwarf puffer. She's been looking forward to getting her own fish for a long time. She used to have a betta a few years ago, and she wanted something with a longer lifespan this time. So we actually got her a dwarf puffer, and they can live, maybe 8-10 years depending on who you talk to, longer than most bettas. Mr. Guppies 101 says, okay, then I unsubscribe. Oh, for what reason? I don't know. Anyway, my daughter has been excited about it. We have a tank set up and cycling for some time, and finally she got it. It's in a tank that I used to keep a dwarf puffer in about 13 years ago. That was my first dwarf puffer back in Hawaii, and it was kind of a funny thing that she did. She was, my daughter at the time, it must have been a little less than 13 years ago, because she's only just about 12, so she's almost 12. So maybe it was 11 years ago when I had the puffer, and I was changing the water, and she was sitting right in front of it. She was just a little baby. She couldn't talk or anything. And she was sitting there with me as I'm changing the water. I turned my back, turned back around, and I couldn't see the fish anywhere. He wasn't in the tank. And then I looked at her, and she had her hand closed. And so I carefully helped her open her hand, and there was a little pufferfish sitting inside there. None the worse for wear, so put him back in the tank, and he was fine and lived for quite a while after that. So anyway, so she's come by her interest in puffers, honestly. She's liked puffers for a very long time. And it was really fun. Just a couple of days ago, we fed the puffer, got some Daphnia and some amphipods from my culture, put them in there and watched the puffer hunt. We I filmed some of it. I might be able to use the footage. I'm not sure. The lighting wasn't perfect, and so I'm not sure if it's going to be good enough to show or not. But if it isn't, we'll film it again. Film something like that again, and hopefully show that. It's really interesting to watch puffers hunt. They're just fish with a lot of personality, so we'll see how it goes. All right. I also got some really fun plants that I'm looking forward to working with. Really slow growing plants. One of them was a variety, a cultivar of Anubias nana petite. It's extremely small. The leaves are probably, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch long at the longest, really tiny ones. and the whole plant is on a piece of driftwood that's about the size of a quarter, so extremely tiny. And then I also got some Cryptocorin parva, which is a very, very slow-growing small plant. Makes great carpets apparently, but it grows so extremely slowly that you have to be patient. And so what I figured I would do is, if it's going to take a long time, I might as well start now and just get a few of those plants, and then let them grow over time, and eventually they'll get to the point where they do what I want them to do. But I'm not really worried about the fact that it's going to take a long time. Oh, 21 Flightless Birds says, I'm not seeing video. Heck, it is I. Oh, let me see. It is I. Sin, I have returned. I don't know if the other comment came through. Doesn't look like the other comment did come through. But glad to see you back. You just changed your name, but you're back. So that's cool. Welcome back. And yeah, the other comment doesn't appear to have come through. So the time has come, everyone. If you want to start asking questions, it's the Ask Me Anything. I do reserve the right not to respond if I feel like the question is too personal or offensive or something like that, but I doubt you do that. So you can ask anything about my critters or whatever, and we'll see how it goes. I am ready. I can always talk your ear off about all kinds of critter-related things if you want me to, if you don't send any comments in, so I can do that too. One thing I would like to mention, 21 Flightless Bird says, must have had a connection issue, fixed it, and I can now see video. Good. Glad that it's working for you again. All right, well, one thing, I really want to get my frog vivarium redone. I'm looking forward to that. Yummiest Orphan says, what animals are you hoping to add to your collection in 2018? Okay, well, one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to is blue shrimp, Neocaridina shrimp, like red cherry shrimp, but the blue ones. I have one. I went to the pet store, local fish store that's no longer local. It's pretty far away from my house now, but we were down in that area and they had one left, and so I picked that up. I am hoping to get a group going, breeding in with my endlers, and I'm also considering setting up a 29-gallon to put under the multi-tank on a double stand and start breeding those as well, along with the endlers, because now I have so many endlers. Since I did the live stream 4 or 5 days ago, I think I probably have 15 to 20 more endlers, so I have about 50 to 60 endlers. They're going like crazy, and not that I'm surprised by that, I'm absolutely not. Some other animals I want to add to the collection in 2018, definitely some more isopod species. There's one amazing species called a rubber ducky that has kind of like an orange head with what looks like a duck's bill on it, and an orange tail, and then the rest of the body is darker. I'd love to get some of those. Let's see, what else have I been thinking of getting? Those are a couple things for now, but I'm sure there are going to be more as well. Mr. Vivarium said, man, I started with 20 Anubias and Java Fern and now have over 30. Haha, yeah, they do grow like crazy. Back in, when was it? About 2007, I ordered some Anubias online and got 2 little starts. And since then, I have produced quite a lot of Anubias. I had a 55-gallon tank that was nearly full of it at one point. And it sold about $80 worth of Anubias from that 55-gallon tank before I had to move, because I knew I had to sell the tank, and I thought I'm going to sell the Anubias first and then sell the tank. Brandon Berry says, where did your interest in plants and critters begin? At what age did you start owning your own pets? Okay, very good question. My mom says that when I was 18 months old, they went on a walk outside. We went on a walk outside. We lived in the state of Washington, where it, of course, rains all the time. And she said, I was just playing around, and she was there, but somehow she didn't notice what I was doing, I guess, because when we got back in the house, or maybe my dad had me on the walk and I came home, whatever. But she found that my pocket was full of earthworms that I had collected. And that was at 18 months old. So I was already interested in critters at that age. And she says that as soon as she reached into my pocket and found those earthworms in there, and they were alive at the time, she just kind of screamed and thought, okay, I know what I'm getting into. And she was right. I never really stopped. And I started owning my own pets at age 4. I had a goldfish named Peter, a shoebunking goldfish. And of course, at the time, my parents did not know how to take care of goldfish or anything. So they were in a bowl. It was in a bowl with 2 other goldfish, probably a half-gallon bowl, 2 other goldfish. Only lasted about 3 months. But my fascination did continue, despite the untimely end of Peter. So that's how that worked. I started owning, I had a hamster by the time I was 6. And then from that point on, I've owned pets almost constantly from that time. So, and Yummiest Orphan said, whoa, coincidence, I bought 4 of those today. Spooky, So you bought 4 of the shrimp that I bought? Or one of the plants? I'm not sure which one. 21 Flightless Bird said, change my username for the new year. Anyways, what dream animals are you hoping to get at some point? Very good question. Okay, so the colony of blue velvet shrimp. Oh, okay, Yummiest Orphan said 4 shrimp. Cool. Yeah, the blue velvet is the type of shrimp that I got, and I'm hoping to get those. Let's see. I'm really interested in quite a few types of shrimp. I don't know how many I could get, but I do want to get a few different types of shrimp. Yes, thank you, Twilly. You can hear Twilly commenting on everything I say now. Okay. Frog-wise, I want to keep some azureus, the really blue frogs. I'm not sure which morph yet, but really blue dart frogs. I would love to do that. Reptile-wise, I want to try blue-tongued skinks, at least one blue-tongued skink. I don't necessarily want to breed them, but I want to try that. I've often thought it would be fun to get a big parrot, but at the same time, I don't think that's a really good thing to do right now in my life. That's a huge commitment, and a lot of times you end up having, the bird takes so much of your emotional energy that could be a problem. But if I ever get a chance to work with a parrot, I would love that. I have done that in the past and enjoyed it a lot, so that would be something I'd have fun with. Stingrays. I would love to do stingrays someday. So would my wife, and so that's a plus. She's already excited about that idea. Brendan Berry says, what's the biggest reptile you own? Right now, probably by weight, it would be our leopard gecko. My daughter's leopard gecko. I'm not sure because we have a crested gecko that's pretty big, but I'm pretty sure our leopard gecko outweighs all of the crested geckos we have. So nothing big right now, but I'm still really interested in the idea of getting a blue-tongued skink. They're fun. So let's see. So 21 Flightless Bird says, I love blue-tongued skinks, but my roommate is afraid of lizards. She doesn't mind snakes, though, which is a bit odd. Yeah. I guess everyone has their own thing. That's kind of sad, though, because blue-tongued skinks are pretty amazing. And I think they're kind of endearing even to people who don't like reptiles in a lot of cases, but you can't always change, someone has a kind of a deep-seated dislike or discomfort with things like that. I don't know. HD Aqua says, you think there's a market for gold dust day gecko up there in the mainland? I have a lot of them running around my yard. Cool. I remember seeing those when I was in Hawaii. In certain places, there was a shop where you could walk in and there would be one usually sitting somewhere near the counter or up by the light, the room light. He would bask in the room light, which is kind of funny. But yeah, those are really fun. I don't know that there's a huge market for them here that I have noticed. I mean, people buy them, certainly, but it seems like the big market for day geckos that I've seen are in the high-end morphs of the giant day geckos, and some for the little clemeri, the little tiny ones. They're fairly expensive. They seem to be hard to get a hold of, but in terms of large volume and large demand, I would say it's the giant day geckos that are the ones that really go for a lot here. And they have some amazing ones. They have blue ones and yellow ones and green ones with lots and lots of red markings. So pretty fantastic. But any day gecko, in my estimation, is pretty fantastic. They're amazing geckos. They're just incredible. And the fact that they're diurnal is another plus. I've thought about setting up a day gecko colony, possibly the little clemeri, the very small ones, sometimes called neon day geckos. They're amazing. And they're about the same size as the morning geckos that I keep, but they'd be diurnal. Mr. Vivarium says, love the gold dust, not many for sale in Canada. Yeah. I wonder, well, there you go. That might be where the market is then. I don't know. Or maybe there's not so many for sale because there's not much of a market. I don't know. 21 Flightless Bird says, I picked up playing the ukulele a couple months back, and now it seems like whenever I play, my snakes peek out of their hides and stare at me. Maybe they like the sound vibrations. I'm unsure. Interesting. Yeah, since they don't really have ears per se, external ears, but they can pick up vibrations through, through their body and through their jaw. They can pick up some vibrations. I wonder if they're picking up any of that. That's interesting. Have you ever tried doing a control stand and pretend you're playing the ukulele and see what they do? Might be fun, just to see what happens. Oh, you're going to groom my beard, are you? That's okay, you can do that. Or not. It's up to you. Yeah. So, I know HC Aqua, I've asked you before where you are in Hawaii, which island you're on, but I don't remember right now. I remember we used to see the gold dust day geckos, but we would also see morning geckos and the Indo-Pacific geckos quite a bit. Those two were the ones that came in the house the most. We never really saw tokay geckos where I was, but I did see them other places when I'd go visiting other places. HC Aqua says, Oahu in Wanalua. Oh, okay. Cool. Yep, I was in Laie, and I noticed that right where I was in Laie, I didn't see as many of the gold dust gay geckos, but if I would go to, I could go to any of the small towns right around it, and I would see them, which is really weird. So if I went to Kahuku or Hauula, I would see them, but I didn't see them in Laie, which was weird. But I would see a lot of anoles. The green anoles and the brown anoles were all over the place, which was fun. And there were several skinks, really small skinks that I would see all the time. But they tended to be in the underbrush. So if I saw some bushes and I thought, oh, I'm going to go look for reptiles in them, I would see the green anoles up in the higher end of the bushes. I would see the brown anoles at the bottom of the bushes. And then down in the undergrowth, I would see the skinks, which is pretty amazing. And HC Aqua says they are the least scared of people. Yeah, they do seem kind of, not exactly friendly, but at least not very afraid. 21 Flightless Bird says, no, I have never even thought of that. Maybe I'll give it a try. I'm sure there are more vibrations now since I bought a new electric ukulele, and with my amplifier I can feel it throughout my whole room. Well, then it seems likely that maybe the snakes are reacting to the vibrations that they're feeling. That would be interesting. Mr. Vivarium says, any good hard water fish for planted tanks? The city has changed our water. It was 6.7, now 7.8. Okay, so your pH is closer to the kind of pH now that I'm dealing with. Is this a consistent change? Interesting, because 7.8, I'm often dealing with water out of the tap at close to 8.0. Sometimes it's even 8.2. And I found that in a planted tank, a lot of it is a consistent change. A lot of the plants do just fine. Not the plants, the fish. A lot of the plants do fine too at that, especially if you're injecting CO2, which of course lowers the pH. But I have kept a lot of fish in planted tanks at higher pH without any problem. The dwarf puffers are one, although you can't really keep them with a lot of other fish very easily. Most kinds of live bearers will do well in a planted tank with a high pH. A lot of the more or less sensitive barbs will do fine. And do you inject CO2? Because that's something to think about. Let me just give you an illustration why I'm asking, or why I'm asking if you inject CO2. Because I used to have a tank with some cardinal tetras in it, and before I started injecting CO2, they were fine in there, even with the high pH, because I bought them from an aquarium. I bought them from a local fish store where the pH was high because it was the local water, and they did just fine, but they didn't look their best. And then as soon as I started injecting CO2, it's been a while, so it's been over 10 years, so I want to make sure I'm representing this right, but I think it was within a day or two that as soon as the pH started to go down a little bit closer to neutral, the cardinals just absolutely colored up. They were brilliant under that CO2. So injecting CO2 could make a big difference, and it's worth a try. If you're doing a planted tank and you want to try tetras or something like that. Sometimes it's not the hard water so much that is the problem, as long as they're, you can acclimate them to it slowly, but their colors will really pop once they get in, that the pH starts to dip with the CO2. So that could be interesting to play with. And H. Aqua says, guppies love hard water, definitely. They love my hard water. My endlers love my hard water. Mollies love hard water. So those are some options. And really, I've kept so many fish I need to think of other fish that I've kept in hard water and planted tanks. Barbs, Coolie loaches. Even bettas in planted tanks with hard water. It's almost anything that you can get. Not anything. There are, some of the fish, those are like some of the little dwarf rasboras and stuff that only really do well in water with a really low pH and low hardness. There are some of those, but there are a lot of the fish that you can get at a pet store that will live in a planted tank just fine, even if the pH is higher. Just getting them to adapt to it. 21 Flightless Bird says, I gave my mother my old ukulele and she says even her snake comes out to listen. Huh, even though it's acoustic, maybe some of the sounds it's making are just making the snakes curious. It's funny that the sound would travel through the ground because it's definitely not getting to the snakes through the air because they don't have the external ears, but that's interesting. Well, unless there's something I don't know about how their jaws pick up sound. And H.C. Aqua says, my dad made a few ukulele a couple of years ago. They have classes here. Yeah, very popular there. So Mr. Vivarium says, I may try it, running a low-tech at the moment. Well, yeah. I was so excited when I first tried CO2, and I would probably be doing it now, but my wife is and I just did do-it-yourself CO2 with running a yeast system. I didn't just throw yeast in. Did you hear him say budgie? That was fun. It was just yeast, but I don't use plain yeast. I use yeast with protein powder and molasses because that helps kind of supercharge it. And eventually I had my own yeast culture. I would not add yeast to it. I would just use some of the old mix, and so selectively the yeast that was produced worked better at the room temperatures than it used to, and it was really easy to keep it consistent because I would just have 2 bottles hooked up to the system, and then I would empty one bottle maybe 3/4 of the way and then fill it up with new material, the new culture medium, I guess, the sugar water with the protein and the molasses, and then within an hour or so the yeast was back to bubbling, and because the other one was still going. So every week or 2 weeks I would replace one bottle, and it kept it pretty steady. It worked great, and I would probably be doing it now, but my wife Kelly is not too excited about the CO2 because of the way it smells when I open the bottles. She's not a real fan, and I'm just trying to keep things simple. So I'm running my tank on my Endless tank, which is my only really fancy planted tank. I have plants in other tanks, but I guess fancy is kind of a stupid word for it, but my moderately technological aquarium has, I'm just using Flourish Excel and Easy Green from Aquarium Co-op as to supplement the tank, and it seems to be working really well. The plants are growing. It's still early, but it's working well. But there's nothing like CO2, and I've never even done the high-tech CO2. I've just done the low-tech CO2, and it's amazing how much it affects the plants. The Flourish Excel does make a difference. You can see it. It helps, but the CO2 is amazing. So HC Aqua says, Hawaii water is hard. Yeah, I remember it was, and I keep even soft water fish just fine. So there you go. And HC Aqua says, even licorice grammies and chili raspberries. Well, that's kind of surprising, but that's cool. That's good. And HC Aqua says, CO2 grows plants so much faster. I'm running it in 3 of my tanks and are comparably more plentiful than my non-CO2 tanks. Yeah, you can definitely tell. 21 Flightless Bird says, man, I wish there were ukulele classes in New Mexico. When I first started playing, it was a bit hard to pick up, but now I think I'm doing really well. I always thought that would be fun. My cousin's wife plays the ukulele, and it's fun. We've done puppet shows where she plays the ukulele as part of it. Oh, H.C. Aqua says, by the way, there's an ukulele making class, not a playing class. Use nice wood like koa. Cool. That would be cool, too, to craft them. So H.C. Aqua says, wait, what is low-tech CO2? And what I mean by that is just like, do-it-yourself CO2 with the yeast reactor rather than, using all the fancy solenoids and using pressurized CO2 in a canister. That's what I mean. And you can do the citric acid and baking soda CO2 system, which I have not played with, but if I'm going to get into CO2 anywhere in the next couple of years, that's what I want to do. I want to try the baking soda citric acid system because it's fairly inexpensive, just like the do-it-yourself yeast reactor, but it's less likely to smell. So I might try that. And 21 Flight Spurt says, that's pretty cool as well. My current ukulele is made of koa with abalone inlays. Oh, that's got to be pretty. My point still stands about the ukulele classes. And Mr. Mavarium says, going to be doing an update on the tank this week if you want to see it. Yeah, I would love that. And Heckoff says, how does the family feel about all the pets? Well, not all the pets are mine. My youngest daughter, will start from the bottom and go up, I guess. My youngest daughter has this bird. It's her bird. She's really excited about having this bird. She's had him a couple years now. And she loves animals a lot. And she has her own pufferfish, like I said. And the next one up is my other daughter, and she has her own leopard gecko and her own axolotl. So she likes animals too. Then my youngest son really wants to get a cuttlefish someday. He loves animals, and he loves our cat and is always playing with the cat. He's always playing with the bird. And all of our kids have had their own rats. We used to have some really lovely rats, so they've all had them. And my oldest son has his own centipede and wants to get a tegu lizard someday. So don't play at the microphone, okay? Can you just stay on my shoulder and be nice? Is that cool? Yeah? Okay. Okay. And HC Aqua says, oh, no, I need to tell you. I didn't tell you about my wife. Well, my wife grew up in a home in which both of her parents had been zookeepers at least 3 different zoos. And they all keep animals. They've kept animals their whole lives. She grew up with dogs and cats and fish and things like that. A little bit. They weren't so much into the fish, but they had, some goldfish tanks and things like that. But she loves animals too. She has her own crested gecko. Our first crested gecko was hers. And so my wife just said, right after we got married, she knew that we were going to be having pets. And so she said, okay, please no tarantulas, can't deal with it. Please nothing real dangerous, like nothing with medically significant venom. And then after living in Hawaii and dealing with roaches in our apartment complex, she said, please no roaches. So that's pretty reasonable, but she likes most things. H.C. Aqua says, oh yes, the DIY. I started out there. I used a citric acid system as well, but now I have a regulator and CO2 tank, a lot less work. Yeah, that's one of the trade-offs. You have to, if you're doing the DIY, there's a lot more effort and tweaking involved. And if you don't mind the tweaking, that's something. But if you mind tweaking and you just want to leave it alone and let it go for the next 6 months, then you got to go a little bit higher tech. So Brandon Berry said, did you go to college or have you been able to study or work in fields that pertain to your interests? So actually, my major in college was in linguistics, and then my major was in Italian, and my master's degree is in linguistics. But I have been able to work in fields relating to animals quite a bit. When I was in Hawaii, I volunteered at the zoo and then was able to work at the zoo when I came back here for a while, and that was a lot of fun. I worked in the education department, which kind of relates to my major because I did a lot of education classes, methodology classes, that kind of thing, and was able to use some of that. So that was fun. I really enjoyed working at the zoo. It just doesn't pay enough to pay the bills with the family, really. So couldn't keep doing it, but I would have loved to. It's a lot of fun, and I'm not going to close the door on that venue if it ever happens. Who knows? 21 Flightless Bird says, I learned in the last year that you never really know how many people have your interests until you get into them. Within the first month of playing the ukulele, I saw a guy at my local library playing. Yeah, it's true. It works that way. And when I got into reptiles and fish, go to the local shops and be able to have awesome conversations with some amazing people. Yeah, I totally know how that is. I'll tell you what, this is a fun thing that I get to do. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this online, on YouTube or not, but one thing that I do, basically all my animals, and you know I have a lot. Hey, Daniel D, welcome. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad you're here. So all my animals, basically to fund all the animals that I have, I sell animals that I breed. I don't like take part of my paycheck and use it to take care of the animals. I don't do that. Can't really afford to do that. So the system has been for quite a number of years that all the aquariums and the reptiles and everything is all funded by itself. So I sell isopods and things like that locally and online. So I have the local online classifieds. A lot of people come in to my house and buy things, as well as selling things online. And some of you may know that. Some of you may have purchased from me. In fact, I recognize names here of people who have purchased things from me. So I do that kind of a lot, and so people are always coming by the house and buying, isopods or springtails or various things, aquarium plants, whatever it is. And it's fun to have conversations with them because they know what I'm interested in. They're interested in the same things. So I totally know what you mean. It's fun. And they often express that it's really fun to do that. So let's see. Daniel D says, do you know a good place that I could buy dwarf white isopods and springtails for a decent price? Well, I would say if you're paying a lot more than $5 for a starter culture of dwarf whites or springtails, you could probably do better. One place to look is, most dart frog suppliers will have them available year-round, or vivarium supplies. Like any herpeticulture usually sells them. Some other places you can find them, like Josh's Frogs, things like that. If you're ever interested, I sell them. The only problem is, right now, I wouldn't ship dwarf white isopods because it's too cold to ship them, and that's a problem. But if you can get to a reptile expo, especially one where there are going to be dart frog breeders, you'll most likely be able to pick some up. That is a good place to do it. You'll usually be able to get them for fairly cheap. But really, if you can find them for about $5 each for a starter culture, that's pretty good. So Mr. Vivarium says, gotta go, talk to you soon. Well, thanks for joining, Mr. Vivarium, and really appreciate it. And Daniel D says, okay, thanks for feedback. No problem. 21 Flightless Bird says, the last pet expo in my state was in 2006, over 10 years ago. Wow. Yeah, that is a while. In ours, we usually get 2 a year that we can get to. I mean, we don't always get to them, but we have 2-year ones in the spring, ones in the fall. Fresno Cascabel says, what's your bird saying? Well, just a second ago he said something like budgie boy, which is what he often says. A lot of it's nonsense, but he sticks words in there too. So unfortunately my daughter has decided that it's funny to teach him nonsense syllables too that don't make much sense. So he says some of those, and I guess it's up to her, it's her bird, but I kind of preferred to hear him say intelligible things myself. Are you going to say something for us? Oh, he just said, okay. I don't know if you heard that, but. I heard him say budgie in there. I don't know if you heard that, but who's in there? Oh. Well, it's been about 34 minutes, so I'm going to go another minute. If anybody else has anything they'd like to share, then please go ahead. And Fresno Cascabel says, that's pretty good for a parakeet. Yeah, it is. I had one when we lived in Hawaii that unfortunately met with an accident before we moved back. That was sad. But he would say some things on cue. I would say, what's your name? And he would say, Perky, Perky. And it was fun. And I would also say, what does a pirate say? And he would say, wind in your sails. 21 Flightless Bird says, oof, I gotta go. Good luck with the animals. Well, thank you very much. And glad to have you here. And 7 Mile says, your linguistics training didn't include budgie? Unfortunately not, but I am picking up a little bit here and there. Can you say budgie? Budgie? Not working. Oh, sometimes if you blow a raspberry to him, he'll make a funny noise. Daniel D said, will you be doing more live streams like this? I hope to be doing live streams weekly. I don't know if this is a great time, but this is one of the few times I have available is Tuesday afternoon, evening. So I hope so. I hope so. That's the plan. And Brendan Berry says, really enjoyed this, Russ. Thanks for doing stuff like this. So glad I found your channel. Well, I'm really glad too. And I'm really grateful to all of you for watching. And I probably better go. I've got to record some other videos that are going to be coming up in the rest of this month. So thanks again for joining me. Thanks again for everything, for all of your support in every form, just every comment, every like, all your presence on the live streams. I love it. So 7 Mile says, thanks for sharing. Thank you, and you're welcome. So, all right. Noob 3304 says, bye. All right. Thank you, everyone. Any last words for us, Twilly? No, he's just going to wiggle around like that. Okay. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great night.